broadcasting live from unknown remote locations and not their parents' basements. It's B2B Tonight with Ryan O'Hara and John Mazza.
Featuring Jason Bay, Chief Prospecting Officer at Blissful Prospecting, and David Priemer, Founder and Chief Sales Scientist at Cerebral Selling.
And now, everybody welcome our host, Ryan O'Hara.
Hi, everyone. You like my delayed reaction where I look up? That's part of the look. That's what I do to get everyone excited. Welcome to B2B Tonight. Mazza, is this our last show of the year for B2B Tonight? I know you're putting together something evil and that's a little cool, but this is our last normal episode, right?
Yeah, this is going to be our last live episode of the year, and I'm shedding a tear right now.
I noticed it. I was going to ask you if you got something in your eye or if that's just what's happened to you now.
Yeah, I do cry at least 5 times a day,
So normally when we do this show, we have guests in the green room and we hide them. And you don't get to see them. We do one at a time and we slowly let them out of their cages. But today we're going to do something a little bit different to start the show in honor of it being the last episode of the year. We're going to have our guests come on right away. And hopefully they're not going to fight. I don't think there's any beef between them, but I've heard some rumors backstage that Jason Bay at one point tried to bite David. I'm just kidding. But anyway, let's say hi to our guest today. To start with, let's talk about Jason Bay. Jason Bay started Blissful Prospecting. I know we have a number of clients at LeadIQ that have used Jason's program. You've got some really cool frameworks and stuff that have helped people. What's up, Jason?
I'm super excited to be here. David is one of the nicest guys you'll meet. So there'd be no way that I would ever get into any sort of altercation with him. So
I don't want the rumors. I can see you guys messaging me after and be like, why did you say that? They know. No, I'm just kidding. There's no beef here, obviously. This is a peaceful place. And it took me years and years and years to figure out how to pronounce your last name, David, but everyone say hi to David Priemer. Did I say it right?
You got it. Yeah, absolutely. You know, being Canadian, people want to Frenchify it for some reason. But yeah, you got it right. And I was, I was working up a whole beef with like Jason, like, hey, you owe me $50, man. What's going on? And this was the confrontation. But no, Jason is also one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. So no beef here.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting. For people that don't know about cerebral selling and stuff, can you tell them about it a little bit?
Yeah, so Cerebral Selling is a sales training and thought leadership practice built around the principles of science and empathy. Essentially, the best way to connect with people is to use tactics that are scientifically proven, but do it in a human way. And that's what we do at Cerebral Selling.
Oh, man, you're preaching to the choir right here. Everyone that's in chat, if you have any questions, our man Anthony, who is off camera, he doesn't allow us to put him on camera, is going to be manning chat. You can ask questions using the Q&A. Of course, this will be recorded. You won't believe how many emails we get about that afterward. This will be recorded, I repeat. So you will get a recording of this. If you, for some reason, are sick of this, you're like, I'm going to watch this later, screw you, and drop off, you're going to break our hearts. But you should ask some questions and hang out. But there will be a recording. Now, let's jump into this a little bit. Mazza, we were scheming our heads saying, what do we want to do this week? It's the last show of the year for an interesting bit and to talk to people. And we did a little bit of a little marketing survey recently, didn't we, Mazza?
Yeah, we certainly did.
How many people did we survey? Do you remember?
It was like 180 something. I don't remember.
Very scientific. So we did this thing where we have, the LeadIQ mailing list has tens of thousands of people in sales on it. And so we actually, with the help of Anthony, who's in chat, hi, Anthony, shout out again. We actually pinged and reached out to a bunch of people and asked some questions about sales. We're not going to go through all the survey results today, but we're going to make a little game out of it. We're going to go through 5 questions that we had that were numbers. And Jason and David, you guys are going to play a game we call Guess the Number. Now, here's the deal. Here are the rules. There actually aren't really any rules. We're going to have you guys guess the number. We're going to reveal the number for each question that we ask. And you can't go over. If you go over, we all judge you and shame you. I don't think we have a scoring system here. We did not get approval from the SEC to run a game show, so none of that stuff's going to be happening. But let the record show that you guys are going to be in the hot box here. We're going to ask you some questions. They have not seen these results, so if their numbers are off, no one's judging. This is real data we collected from thousands of people. You guys want to do this?
This is like Family Feud, right? It's like we surveyed 100 people, and here's what they said.
Yeah, kind of, sort of, except it's all numbers because we were going to do that, but there are too many cuss words. Our email list is full of some profane people. It's very disruptive. So, all right. Do you want to do this? Are you ready, Maza?
Yeah, let's do it.
Am I the reader or you want to read, Maza?
How about you read?
Okay. Question number 1. We asked people, how many target accounts do you currently have in your name in Salesforce? I want to see what you guys think the answer was. Keep in mind, 180 people answered this question. What do you think the average number was without going over? Who wants to go first? Let's do Jason.
80.
You want to take a shot at it, David?
Yeah, well, and not that needs qualification, but when I was at Salesforce, my reps had 400 accounts. They're selling to small businesses, and then you go to, commercial business, they had 7 or 8. So, but I think if I'm kind of going mass market here, I'm going to say most people would say, I like Jason's number. I might go just maybe a teensy bit lower. I'll go 40, 45. How about that?
Okay. The actual answer, and this was really surprising, by the way. The actual answer was the average rep says that they have 294 names in their account in Salesforce. I was really high. I was surprised. What do you guys think of that? Give us some analyses on that, if that's my cool scientific term.
Well, it's hard to know without knowing what they're selling. You alluded to that, David. So this is the question I always get asked is how many accounts should I be reaching out to? How many people? And then how many activities should I do? And it's all a math equation with no perfect answer. But that surprises me, actually. That seems very, very high. I wouldn't expect someone to have that many accounts unless you were selling something that was, $10,000 ACV or lower, kind of situation usually.
Or it just depends. Like I said, back at Salesforce, so I was running small business sales for the Eastern US, and my reps on average had 300 to 400 accounts that they could call into. So the number is high, although I will say, and this is, I don't know if this is an opportunity to kind of drop some helpful tips, but one of the things I talk a lot about is this idea of selling more by losing faster. And where this comes from is that, just managing all these teams over the years, the reps that actually move their deals through the pipeline the quickest, and I give a shout out to my New York City sales reps because they were always, the most hustle, the most, ruthless as far as their pipeline. And if you keep that pipeline tight and small and focused, then you'll actually do better. Like statistically, that's what I found, at scale, and certainly a lot of my clients have found that as well. So even if you have 250, I would still say that's too much. Like how many do you really have? You can take that number down to 75. You're going to be in much better shape to execute on that pipeline and hit your number.
I'm going to give you guys some Zen quote here. In my opinion, it's better to prospect an ocean deep versus a puddle. Wait, I'm doing it backwards. It's better to prospect you don't want to prospect a puddle deep and ocean wide. And that's what this set tells me when I hear 294. It's impossible for you to go through and hit all these people up with thoughtful prospecting that has empathy if you're, going after 1 million people in a year or in a month. The next question is kind of related. Do you guys want to tackle that? You ready?
Yep.
Since I butchered that stupid puddle metaphor and all my credibility is just shot through the roof, no one trusts me. It's fair. I wouldn't trust me.
Yeah, I don't.
Thanks, Maza.
I've never trusted you.
Question number 2. On average, how many contacts are you prospecting for a single target account at any given time? Guess the number. So this is the same group that, by the way, said earlier 294 target accounts. How many prospects are they reaching out to at those target accounts at any given time? Do you want to go first this time, David? Taking a guess?
Sure. I'm gonna go out and just say 4. I think again, kind of to what Jason's point said before, it all depends. Like what kind of accounts are these? Like if they're small business accounts, and the number's probably low, bigger accounts probably higher. But I'll probably say 4. I think the number for an average rep should actually be higher than that for an average deal, for an average company. But I think most people are probably just in that 4 range.
All right, let's go with the Bay man, Jason Bay. What do you think?
So this is another interesting thing I come across in the work that I do, where the reported number is actually higher than what the CRM would report that it is. So I would say people might report that they're reaching out to 3 or 4, but it's probably like 1.5 to 2 on average.
Interesting.
Some inflation.
All right.
Yeah.
So the actual number that we got in the survey was 9 prospects at any given time. That's higher than I thought it would be also, by the way. But
what? Across all those accounts, 9 people each?
That's what the people said. I mean, we're only working with the data that they said.
I think it's like what Jason said. It's what they said. Right?
Yeah.
What they said are how like deep? Like, is it a bowl of soup? Is that what you were saying earlier? Is that puddle?
Hey,
Or is
you
it
leave my
an
you leave my
ocean,
terminology out of this.
swimming pool?
So, you guys were talking about this a little bit. It depends on the SMB and mid-market. Let's go through each of these really quick in your opinions to help kind of get this conversation piping hot a little bit. If you're going after enterprise, how many people should be breaking into a target account at a time?
Oh God, I hate to say it depends, but here's a framework that I would use to think about it. A lot of it has to do with what you're selling. So for example, I have a customer that sells a customer experience solution. And I think about the people that care about customer experience. In enterprise, that could be for them, it was people in contact centers. It was people in digital marketing. What's the experience that this customer is going to have through the digital marketing journey? And there was an employee experience component of that too. So that was HR. I mean, we're talking multi-threading across 2, 3, 4 different departments in that case versus I'm selling LeadIQ. And that probably is one department. That's probably your sales department with sales development in there or sales enablement if you want to roll it in. So I think it kind of depends on how many different, business units are affected, by what you sell. It would be my answer on the enterprise side.
The key thing here you're saying though, Jason, is notice that you didn't just say go after just one person. You got to sell to a whole village basically, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, David? You want to add some commentary to that?
I agree. Like, I think that 9 number is probably accurate for like a true enterprise deal. And the first company I ever worked for was a big enterprise software company, like big on-premise solution, $1 to $5 million, kind of sales contracts in addition to services and technology and so on. And I think 9 would have still been a lot for them. Certainly there can be committees and then you do the demo and there's like 50 people that show up, but I wouldn't say those are target people that I'm reaching out to. So I think 9 seems about right for a big enterprise customer, but even, like you could probably get away with even a little bit less than that and still win the deal.
Okay. We're going to do question number 3. Don't worry, we're going to get to planning and stuff in a couple minutes, but this is a good setup for planning, I think. That's why I want to do this. Question number 3. Give me the percentage of sales reps that say they hit their quota consistently all the time. So we ask people how often they hit their quota to clarify the question. They could pick many options. They could say all the time, some of the time, never, rarely. Like those are basically the options here. What percentage of people that work in sales say that they hit their quota consistently all the time? You guys want to take a stab at the percentage? Let's do Jason first on this one.
I was laughing earlier because I feel like this is going to be a really inflated, self-reported number. I bet that it's probably 85 or 90+% of people, I bet, reported that they hit their quota consistently, but it's definitely much lower than that.
I think people are a little honest here. David,
Really?
you want to take a stab?
I'll say 70%. I know the real number is lower than that, and we know that because of the statistics that we use when we put together territory plans and modeling and financial plans and so on for the board of directors. So it's less than 70. It depends on the company. I actually know companies, if you can believe it, who tell me that most of their reps hit their number. Like it's very easy for them, and there's a lot of nuance there, but I'll go with 70, even though I think the number is actually a little bit lower than that.
All right. So this was actually really surprising. Of the 180 people surveyed, 31% said sales reps hit their quota, say that they hit their quota all the time. Only 31%. So maybe they're being a little brutally honest. Maybe reps have bad months and stuff. What do you guys think about that? Should a reps have monthly quotas, quarterly quotas? Like, what's the best practice for that in 2022?
I'll say, like, I think it completely depends on what you're selling, obviously, and like the average sales cycle length. Now given the choice, if you can, I'm a fan of the monthly quota because it encourages a little bit more consistency. It's like people always wonder back at Salesforce, people always wonder like, why is the end of January such a big month and why is December? It's because we train our customers to buy from us during these kind of, sales periods. But then also we work as sales reps at an unsustainable level of effort during these periods to produce that outcome. So I like this idea of the monthly quota because it drives a little bit more sense of urgency throughout the year. But, to your point, like how do you make your quota, to the question of like how consistently do you hit your quota? Even reps that have monthly comp plans have an annual number. And so the question becomes, okay, like how often am I hitting that monthly number versus the annual plan? Annual plan, 60 to 70%. Monthly plan, there's going to be some numbers that you absolutely blow it out, and then some numbers that you fall short. So that's probably where they're getting that slightly lower number from.
David, when you ran teams, what would you do if a rep wasn't hitting quota for a month? Is it red alarm, like red alert, 99 red balloons here, or do you kind of cool it for a little bit and give them another month or two before you start hitting the panic button?
Well, it's one of these things, like I believe it's actually very hard, given like the complex selling environment that we find ourselves in, for sales reps to bring in deals like on command, right? Like on command, like in the month and the time frame. That's hard to do. So I don't get too bent out of shape if a rep, if you have a monthly quota, doesn't hit their rep on one particular month, especially if they have, good months and so on, like surrounding it. But the question is always, all right, if the goal is to have these kind of consistent months, well, then how do we do that? How do we do that? And actually, I'll to tell you a very quick story. I had one of my reps at Salesforce who did a fantastic job. She was a rep in my Atlanta office. And one of the things that she did was she did what I call, she changed the circadian rhythm of her month, meaning she assumed that the 15th of the month was really her month end. And she focused on closing all of her business by the 15th of the month. And then at the end of the month, she was prospecting and doing her cleanup and hygiene and so on when everyone else was going nuts. And she never hit like 150% of her quota, but she was hitting 103, 105, 107, 102, like consistently, because she was just kind of relaxed and she had a cadence about her business. So that's it's hard to kind of hit every month depending on what you're selling in your territory, but there are ways you can do it. Again, I don't get super duper freaked out when there's a rep who just misses a month here and there.
That's a great tip. I'm like blown away at that whole 15-month idea. So everyone here steal that. Jason, what do you think? So we just went through this. The numbers 31% are hitting their quota. What do you do if you're not hitting quota? What are some things you can do to change it up so you're not, in a rut and, just crying all the time?
Well, so we have a program, it's Outbound Squad, and it's for individual reps. And a lot of what we do to support them is do quarterly, and we call them halftime events, where we do an event 6 weeks into the quarter. So I'm a really big proponent of what David suggested around monthly quotas, because what I will oftentimes see is it'll be 2 months into the quarter before people realize that, oh, based on my sales cycle, I'm probably not going to close any more deals this month. And I already know that a month away. So I like this concept of, I call it the sales math. What I find is that most companies don't provide a way for reps, a calculator of some sort, to be like, to back into what's my quarterly quota, how many deals do I need to close, how many meetings do I need to book, how does that translate into literally daily activity of outbound emails, calls, social touches. You need to come up with that math, and then halfway through the quarter or on a monthly basis, you have to adjust those numbers based on the actual numbers that you're getting, your actual conversion rates. And where I find people tend to, so a number that I would suggest you figure out that I don't see on very many calculators, I call it the reps load. So if you think about the load that they have to carry on their back, it's the number of activities. So if you look at the past 30 days, the number of activities divided by the number of meetings. And that'll tell you the number of activities on average that rep has to put in to get a meeting. And if that's 100, 200 activities to get a meeting, that's a lot of work. That's a pretty demoralizing work week, if you ask me, versus someone that's able to get a meeting every 40, 50 activities. So that's the number that I would focus on as a rep or as a sales leader, help every rep really figure out like what is the load that they have to carry? How many activities do they have to put in to get a meeting? And be constantly looking at those numbers and adjusting throughout the quarter.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I wrote a blog post a couple of years ago about something like this. I called it the prospecting efficiency score. And it's basically how many touches does it take for you to get a response, and how many responses does it take to get an opportunity. And if you multiply those two things, you can kind of figure out where a rep stinks or not, like where they're struggling. Maybe they're not doing enough activity every day. Maybe they're getting a lot of responses, but they're not lining up a good value prop or overturning objections effectively enough. You can kind of diagnose those things by doing the stuff you're talking about, Jason. So like if you're having trouble hitting quota, dissect it a little bit, right? Maybe you're not even connecting with the prospect the correct way and selling in a way that's appealing to them with empathy. Like that's another part too. And David, I know that's like a big thing that you're all about, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I mean, even when Jason's talking about kind of this, almost this kind of predictable revenue model, I also like this idea of like looking at the discrete activities and what you're doing. So if you say, okay, I need to do this many outreaches to get this result at the end of the day, then the question I have is, all right, so like, what are those? What are the contents of those outreaches? Are those email outreaches? Are these like on video? Are you like doing a little bit of research in advance? Are these, your tier 4 accounts that you're just blasting out? Because there's definitely ways that you can kind of twist the screw to get a little bit more efficiency out of each of these touch points. So if, for example, as Jason's saying, if the number actually seems really high and very difficult to attain, well, then maybe the solution is rather than working harder, change up some of the things you're doing so you get a little bit more efficiency out of your touch points.
So you're starting to do some planning right now, 2022. You're scheming some stuff up. Listen to some of these tips. These are really good. We got 2 more questions, guys, and they're both 2-parters. It's going to be, you're going to have to guess 2 numbers here. So question number 4. Without going over, what do you think is the average base salary of an AE and an SDR before commission? These are separate numbers, obviously. Let's take a stab at this. Jason, do you want to go first? So let's do SDR first, then we'll do AE afterward.
SDR, I know what the data is across Glassdoor and RepView, but my guess that was reported is probably $50K for an SDR, and the average salary is probably around $90K for an AE.
Okay, do you want to take a stab, David?
Yeah, I agree. Like and again, it depends like what segment and so on. I like $50K for an SDR. Maybe if I had to go on the higher under over, I would say under. And then for an AE, again, it depends on the segment. I know what we paid people at Salesforce, and it certainly depended on the city as well. But I would say, I'll go with 82K and see where we end up on this one.
All right. So on the AE side of the respondents, the average base salary was $77K in 2021. On the SDR side, the average salary is $56K. Now, this is the reason I bring this up a little bit. I think one of the reasons that these numbers are a little higher than what you might see on Glassdoor is literally in June, we started to see 1/3 of the workforce change jobs. There's actually a shortage of talent, both in sales. It's been estimated there are over 8 million people that left the workforce in 2020. Some people, for example, were working in sales and they switched to single income so someone could stay home with the kids and stuff if they weren't going to school. Some of those people haven't come back to work yet, or they're dealing with that situation, or they're staying single household, like single income because of that. So it's kind of interesting. I think that data is telling us that you got to come up with some clever comp plan stuff this year if you want to try and backfill the 1/3 of people that are leaving. Add in the quicksand factor that I call it, that these companies didn't spend a lot of money in 2020. It's now 2021, and they got to spend all this money before the end of the year. So you've got to not only make up the 1/3 of the workforce you're losing, you got to also hire new people. Have you guys seen, Jason, on your end with any of your clients, has anyone been having trouble with hiring and stuff?
This is such a tough question because it's going to be so biased. The companies that hire me are ones that are willing to invest in their reps. So that right there in itself is a selling point when they hire. And I don't have any clients that have trouble hiring people. And I think, again, it's because of that. I don't like this investing in hiring. I don't think companies are thinking about how they make it more appealing to work for them. I'll give you an example. I got a client, his name's John. He's an SDR manager at a company called Path Robotics, and I can reveal that because we recorded a podcast together.
It's allowed. This is allowed.
Yeah. So one of the things that they do really well that I was telling him, I was like, you market this, aspect when you're hiring right now is that it's such a collaborative environment on the SDR team where the SDRs own the sales development playbook. They own the playbook together. They run these virtual call sessions where they make cold calls together on a Zoom call, that sort of stuff. And the SDRs take turns leading those sessions. That's a pretty cool culture and environment to work in. And I don't think that companies are thinking enough about how do I make this more than just, because I come from call centers, how do I make this more than just a call center type job or a telemarketing job for these people? How are we paving a career path? How are we investing in their development? How are we making it fun to work here? I think that's what companies really need to think about in 2022 to differentiate themselves.
I heard something interesting actually a couple weeks ago. I was at an event and I was talking with some people there. And one of the things that they suggested too is that like with COVID, you've lost some of that. You used to get to know people's families and partners and siblings and whoever you bring to group events at companies, and those aren't happening anymore. So you kind of miss that like authentic relationship building, which makes differentiation between the workforce and you different, like when you're comparing it to other jobs and stuff. So it's interesting. Anything to add, David, from what Jason just said?
Well, yeah, like I think it's always a challenge getting talent and top talent. I think I'm not seeing a big challenge with people all of a sudden having issues attracting the talent. The bigger issue is just the volume of people who are leaving their jobs and going to work somewhere else. So there's a ton of this is what I see, and I work in B2B, high growth B2B tech. Tons of talent changing hands, and that's the thing that's actually causing the disruption. So even if you have a great company, it's very easy to attract talent. If a larger percentage of your people are kind of moving around, okay, now it just takes more effort to hire, and that's the biggest thing. And the thing, it's funny talking to some of my colleagues, some of these bigger companies. It used to be that when Jason says, hey David, I think it's time for me to go. I think it's it's time for me to resign. I'm gonna go on. I would say, hey Jason, man, like let's talk about this. I'm gonna fly down and we're gonna go to lunch. It's good. Like I just want to understand where you're at, and I might have a good chance of saving Jason, right? And now what's happening is Jason's calling me and he's saying, hey David, so I'm gone. I start my new job on Monday, and it's like I'm making $100,000 more at this other place, and there's no discussion, right? So I think the circumstances under which people are moving and the frequency and the volume is just out of control, pandemic-wise, and so that's what's causing the most amount of turbulence.
You guys are crushing these questions and doing exactly what I wanted with my evil scheme of getting these survey results. I wanted to get some commentary, and you guys are crushing it. Okay, this next question is kind of related to the last question. So we were just talking about base salaries before. The last question that we're going to go over today from the survey is, what do you think the average total earnings of AE and SDRs are, including commission? So this is when you are adding commission to the base salary we just talked about. AEs and SDRs, if you guys want to take a stab at that. Just to remind you, the AE number in the survey was 77,000 for base salary. The SDR base salary was 56,000. So we're asking for, what do you think their income is after they make commission? What do you think the average is? Let's start with AEs. Let's go with David first, by the way, because Jason went first last time.
I say double, right? So like you're like what, 154 if you're 77?
You want to take a stab, Jason?
I'm gonna go 120.
Interesting. Okay. I like that you both didn't want to go over, which was good. So the AE answer that we got was $174,000. So they're making almost 100K more in commission. A little less than 100K. It's like 93,000. Any commentary on that before we jump into the SDR number?
Well, the data is so confusing to me, because that would be indicative of an enterprise comp plan, typically with a commission structure like that, where and the account number, it just doesn't make sense to me. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. I don't know.
I think with all these questions, there's the issue of like a qualification. Are these like on target earnings? Are these actually like attainment? So it could very well be, like my experience has been, and this is at Salesforce and other companies on the AE side, it's typically like double, like whatever your base is, you double that. Now look, are there additional incentives? Are there accelerators? Is it possible to hit more than 200%? Of course you could, right? So maybe the folks you're talking to are working at some pretty good companies there.
Yeah. Cough, cough. Or they have a good sales process. Cough, cough. LeadIQ. Cough, cough. What am I doing? Why would I sell my product on a webinar? That's not a lot. No, I'm just kidding. So I honestly, the reason we asked it is I wanted to ask you guys what it should be. Double sounds like a good rule of thumb for that, which is great. And then on the SDR side, you guys want to take a stab after making commission? What's the SDR's earnings at the end of the year?
65.
Well, they started at 50.
Yeah, they started at 56, Jason. Yeah, so you want to pick a little higher number?
I'm still going with 65.
Okay. What about you? What about you, David?
I'm going with, if they're hitting their number, I'll go with 80.
So the answer was 82 for an average. Do keep in mind these are averages too. Like there could have been a couple high roller people that put in some stuff for this, and they're skewing the equation a little bit. But yeah, it's interesting. I remember when I was a BDR many years ago, I would have dreamed to make $30,000 in commission.
Yeah.
So it seems like it might not be a bad idea to be a little bit more aggressive with your commission plans for SDRs and stuff. What do you guys think of that?
I think there's a big opportunity. The reason why I said that's most of the time what I see with someone making a 60K salary is maybe 10 or 15K that they can make on top of that. But I think there's a big opportunity to incentivize SDRs and BDRs more on closed sales. Give them a little rip on that commission, you know, 1/4%, 0.5%, something. You know, it feels like in that model that the SDRs and BDRs have a different goal from the account executives. And even when they both roll up into sales, which is not always the case, of course, it still feels pretty siloed to me in most companies that I work with, where I have to, as part of the engagement, get the SDRs and the AEs to collaborate more on account selection, for AEs to help a little bit more with the messaging and say, hey, you know what? In all of my discovery right now, when people come to us, they tell us that these are the 2 or 3 reasons why we're having the conversation. Here are the 2 or 3 things that they want to accomplish. And the SDRs and BDRs are not privy to any of that information. You know what I mean? I really think there's more. We're all trying to accomplish the same goal here. It's all about getting qualified opportunities and closing good deals. And I think there could be way more alignment around the incentives in the commission structure in that.
David's violently nodding his head. Great.
No, I agree, because historically the SDRs, BDRs were just comped on like leads flipped and accepted, right? And that creates a little bit of like a currency where Jason says, "Hey, David, do me a solid. Just like, can you just accept this lead?" And you know, we have this relationship going. But I like this idea, and this is what I see a lot of organizations move to. In my last VP role, we did this, which is you move towards either completely closed revenue, because then everyone's aligned. It's like, I'm not going to flip an opportunity that I don't think at least has a chance, and you're not going to accept an opportunity that you don't think at least has a chance and then work it. So I like that alignment. And you can do, sometimes you do like a hybrid where like there's a minimal amount of comp that you get for flipping a lead, and then there's like a kicker when the deal actually closes. I actually don't mind that at all either, but you're trying to kind of remove this kind of, you know, buddy kind of system and align everyone with just sourcing really good high potential leads.
All right, we're going to dive into this now with collaborative selling, because Jason touched it, and then you just said something about working as a team. Would it make sense to process and structure your team in pods? Like, I know that's a popular thing we see a lot of the time, where like you might have a bucket of 1 or 2 SDRs that work with 1 or 2 AEs, and then you can kind of tag team accounts together. Do you see that? Like, does that work? Either one of you could jump in.
That's more of what I see working than not. I do want to present a caveat here, though, because leadership has to be bought into this. So if you're freaking using Bant to do your qualification, this has happened to a rep that I'm working with today, where he's an SDR and has a prospect that's the biggest account, and this is a big company. This is one of the biggest accounts that they could break into, and the AE doesn't want to take the call because they don't have an immediate need. I'm like, dude, are you kidding? You know? What happened to actually selling? Because selling to people that already have budget that's kind of table stakes. That's what you're expected to do. Great salespeople sell to prospects and help them create budget around problems that were either bigger, that they didn't know that they had, or whatever it might be. So I think there has to be a lot of alignment around leadership with this too, where there has to be a culture of, from an outbound standpoint, that AE takes that sales call, unless it's with the wrong job title or an account that would never be a good fit. You take that first sales call.
For sure. Well, you know what? I think you touched on a really important point there, Jason, which is this idea of culture. And one of the reasons why organizations structure their teams in pods is to produce a little bit of mutual accountability, and not just with SDRs and BDRs, but also with customer success, which is, in my view, like the bigger issue, right? Which is, you know, oftentimes sales doesn't appreciate what customer success brings to the table, and customer success thinks sales are just, you know, selling customers a bill of goods. So the idea is like we put everyone in pods, we all feel mutually accountable to each other, but at the same time, and then this again depends on, you know, the nature of the team and how big the company is. If you're able to create that culture of mutual accountability and respect and admiration, and sometimes it's just as simple as, you know, even working in the same office together, sitting side by side in pods, even though we might report to kind of different people, that can have a big impact too. I understand why, let's say in the pandemic, when everyone's all over the place, this idea of like working in pods creates a little bit of a, tighter knit community. But I don't think that's something that can't be overcome with the right kind of culture that exists between these communities. In the instance where they're not podded or they don't report to the same people.
So let's go through this hypothetical situation. You were talking about, Jason, in your example, give someone to an AE, the AE's like, hey, they don't have budget right now. I'm not going to take the meeting. I'm going to reject it. And then that SDR is upset, and it's obviously a bumper on some stuff, or bummer on some stuff. How do you prioritize what you should go after then if you're an AE? Like, you're getting all these leads from your SDR, you're probably self-sourcing your own prospecting that you're doing. Like, how do you pick what you should be focusing on that end?
Well, I think it starts with account selection, and companies do this in a lot of different ways. They'll just either assign accounts to people, which is more typical with enterprise, or it'll just be kind of a free-for-all in your territory. This is where I think the first thing that, like the thing that I wrote down was, is the collaboration creating a multiplier effect or not? Because on a lot of SDR and AE collaboration is a 1 + 1 = 1 type of situation versus a 1 + 1 = 3. So I think it starts with account collaboration. And you should already know what accounts your SDR is going to go after, because you've already decided that these are the accounts that I want to talk to right now. So you shouldn't ever have to make the decision of whether or not to take the meeting because the account is not, quote unquote, qualified. You should already know that you want to meet with these folks.
Are you suggesting that an AE should pick what accounts the SDR goes after? That's kind of interesting.
I think that they should work on them together. That's the part that I see working the best. But there needs to be a place where we come together and say, these are the 200 accounts that we're going to go after. And now maybe the SDR does a lot of the, kind of research into these. Who should we go after, et cetera. How you decide to go after an account together is another question, right? People want to know, do we go after the same accounts together? Do we go after different accounts? I'm a really big proponent of working the same accounts together and going after different people. One person does bottoms up, the other person does top down, or specific departments, one or the other. You just don't want to be reaching out to the same people. The same person should not get an email from the SDR and the AE. But yeah, you should definitely work together, and the AE is going to have a much better idea in most cases of what deals are going to be most likely to close too. What is that sweet spot of account for you guys?
I like this idea of collaboration, but where you can actually kind of run into trouble is when you have an AE and BDR SDR combination that kind of splinters off and develops their own kind of unique criteria that's different from the rest of the. Miles knows where I'm talking about here. The rest of the sales team, where I've been in situations where BDRs, SDRs are like, oh, I'm not going to flip that to Susan. Susan will never accept that. Whereas another rep would totally accept it, right? So you don't want to get into the position where you're too in sync, that you're out of sync with the rest of the organization. And to the extent that you can have rules of engagement and defined ICP and all that kind of stuff, that'll make it a lot easier. But again, I think this kind of speaks to the fact that there's no perfect model. That really just depends on the nature of your business, your product, your company, and the culture. Absolutely.
Yeah, leadership definitely needs to get involved if that's going to be your structure or the way you sell, in order to make it fair for everybody and keep everybody happy, for sure. Because I've seen it both ways, and as long as leadership is involved in it, it works. It's a great way to sell.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say, like, this idea that you don't have to be like, don't get married to your structure or your tactics, right? And I love, Mark Roberge talks about in the Sales Acceleration Formula. I mean, I know people a lot have read his book, that the stuff they did at HubSpot to grow their business to a certain point, which was like very rigorous and scientifically proven, all that kind of stuff, worked for 9 months, and then it didn't work anymore, and then we had to change it up. So maybe the way you've aligned your sales team, or even the way you compensate your sales team, was great like a year ago, and now that doesn't work anymore. So don't fall in love. That's the take-home message.
I was gonna say, I remember when I was a BDR, I definitely had favorites. Like, I'd have people that I'd like to give ops to versus others, and when it was someone else's turn in the rotation, I'm like, oh no, this thing's gonna die. I see your smile, Jason. Did that happen to you too?
No, it's just the favoritism is just interesting to me. So much of this is just like leadership and the people setting up the system. You gotta notice when this stuff is happening and help facilitate a healthier culture. It's like I don't blame the rep. And people blame, people sandbagging is another thing they give reps shit for. And like they're doing that because the comp plan allows them to do that and they get incentivized for doing it. So it's kind of hard to give them shit about it. You know what I mean? So it's really a leadership kind of thing. I mean, I'm not recommending that reps sandbag or take advantage of their stuff and not be a team player, but you got to kind of look at like what happens is a product of what you tolerate typically as a leader. So
I had this exact conversation. So when I came into my last company after Salesforce, I moved everyone to kind of monthly quotas from quarterly, which is a decision because if you have a sales cycle that's like 60 days, then like, does it make sense to go monthly or quarterly? I like the idea of going monthly just to have a little bit less, turbulence, I guess, in kind of the attainment numbers. But then, of course, a rep says, hey, look, I've hit my number for the month. I got this kind of big juicy deal here. Maybe I just like hang on to that sandbag and wait till the next month. And, in a way, like to your point, Jason, I would say, hey, look, you're working the comp plan. I get it. That's what we are telling you to do by virtue of this plan. And if that's what you want to do, that's great. If you feel that you have that degree, this is kind of what I mentioned earlier, that degree of like control, that you can make deals close when you want them to, instead of bringing them in when they're ready and ripe, then go at it. But if that deal doesn't close next month, like when you want it to, right, and you don't have that consistency, then there's going to be problems, right? So you make the decision. In general, deals don't age well. You should close them when they're ready to close.
I just want to plug questions, by the way. So if anyone has any questions in this, ask them away, and we can ask these two geniuses here what they think the answers are to these things. It doesn't just have to be guessing survey numbers. So let's talk a little bit about 2022 and some of the things that you've been doing, obviously on your end, David. You do a lot of stuff, obviously, on the science end. What's science telling us about sales and prospecting in 2022?
I think the big theme is authenticity. And when you think about what's happened over the last year or two in the pandemic, like people have like, there's so many things they have to worry about. They're switching jobs, they're losing their jobs, their business, everything is just going, in all different directions. And so the question becomes like, if you were the customer, this is what I talk about, sell the way you buy. If you were the customer, like what would it take for a seller to attract your attention? And so when I think about outreach and prospecting, I think about authenticity. And a lot of that comes from just doing a little bit of work, a little bit of homework, a little bit of extra personalization. Doesn't have to take a lot of time to show your prospect that you're human, that you care about them, that you put in a little bit of effort. Because the thing with prospecting, and I think this is a thing a lot of people kind of misunderstand, it's not about selling the deal, right? Prospecting is about getting someone to respond to you, even if it's to tell you no. And so if you want people to respond to, like I don't respond to machines. I don't respond to people that do like the connect and pitch on LinkedIn. But someone who's done a little bit of research, right? They've shown some they drive some reciprocity. They drive a little bit of interest. I will at least get back to them to say, hey, no, thank you. And in most cases, it's all right. Let me hear what you have to say. But I think authenticity, a little bit of not even just personalization, but just a little bit of effort, it's going to go a long way in 2022.
When you coach reps, Jason, what do you usually do to teach them how to do that? Like, how do you teach them to be authentic when they're doing their outreach and stuff? What are some things they can do?
Well, the very first thing that we'll spend an entire week on is empathy. So it's how do I sit in the seat of the people that I'm reaching out to? And there's a couple of things that I've noticed in the way that salespeople are taught, and then the marketing language that they're given is extremely product focused. I know we're talking about what's changing in 2022, by the way, but this is the same stuff I would have said last year and the year before that and the year before that. I think it's becoming table stakes now to have good messaging just to cut through the clutter. Like if you look at LinkedIn, reduce their number of connection requests attempts that you can have in a week to 100, right? More people's emails are going to spam, there's spam filters and all that kind of stuff. It's so much easier to block a call now, that kind of thing. So the thing that you really want to align yourself and wrap your head around with your team or as a rep is priorities, and then problems, and then your solution. And I think where people tend to focus is solution. That's where I see most of it. We do this, we can save you time. Our analytics dashboard will help you do this thing that you can't do right now. And then people are, hey, I should focus on problems. And I think you can over focus on the wrong types of problems. And the big thing that I see that I want to really get alignment around with people is that they tend to talk about problems that the user of the product would have to the executive, the VP or the C-level person that would be authorizing the purchase of this solution. So I'll give you an example. One of those, I mentioned that customer before that sells the customer experience solution. Well, I'll tell you what, the person that is a call center manager cares a lot about being able to listen to recordings and give agents feedback and make sure they're saying the same stuff and increase customer CSAT scores and all that other kind of stuff. But your chief revenue officer doesn't really care about those things. They care about the outcomes that those things are going to drive. How's this going to help me grow our business, reduce risk in some sort of way, make us more profitable so the revenue we're retaining is more profitable? The big thing that I'm seeing is like that understanding. Every single rep down to the SDR that's new on the job within 3 months needs to have a really good understanding of the people you're reaching out to and what they're trying to accomplish, the priority, the problem that gets in the way of doing that, and then your solution. You don't really need to talk about that at all when you're doing outbound. It's just how you can make that thing go away or make it, talk about how you've helped another company, with that before. You don't need to really talk about the solution much.
I think it also allows you not to pigeonhole discovery into one topic too when you do that. So if you don't just like, how many times do we see a wall of text where it's just someone talking about their product for 3 or 4 sentences, and then you're, as a reader, I'm like, I'm out. You know what I mean? I don't want to be on that stuff. So there's different things you can bring up. One of the things I've noticed that's kind of changed too is it's not just about personalizing stuff around the persona and what company they work for. We can talk about this going back to June too with the Great Resignation stuff. Everybody always acts like the person you're reaching out to loves the place that they work, and they might not. You have to do stuff that's individually motivating for themselves personally. It's like how you make friends in life. You have common interest. You stumble into things that you both like and do. Maza and I, for example, met years before LeadIQ. We both used to play the same Friday afternoon softball game with everybody. I was very bad, but Maza was pretty good. But like that's like we had common ground. And when I was recruiting Maza to come work at LeadIQ, did I lead with, "Hey Maza, want a job? Let me sell you on all the reasons you should work at LeadIQ." But it's not how we recruited him. The way we recruited him was like, "Hey, we used to play baseball together."
I was actually the one that sent you that in an email.
Yeah. I'm trying to take credit.
You to remember me.
Well, you know what bugged me is I messaged you, but you applied on the website, so it cost me money that you applied. They pay per application. But you know what I mean? Like do you remember that? I messaged you, I'm like, damn it, why did you just
I thought I was doing you a favor, but I cost you money.
Yeah, you jerk. Our budget.
Yeah, you
David,
took it out of my first.
David, cerebral selling is like a lot about this too, like with the empathy part. What are things you can look for to personalize?
Yeah, so kind of dovetail on what Jason said. I like this idea of picking the common enemy, and this is Jason and I have talked about this a lot as well. I actually, I have clients that we kind of challenge them to say, hey, look, when you get on the phone with a customer, see how far you can get into the conversation without even talking about what it is that you do, right? Try to get like 75% of the way through the conversation. And one of the things that binds people together, like you talked about Maza and yourself and your softball, like the thing that binds people together, like think about this. When you get on a call with someone, random person, what's the first thing you talk about? When you're just making chit chat.
You might do some small talk, right?
About what?
I don't know, the weather, where you live.
Okay, good. Let's just stop there. Okay. So why do we talk about? So you walked right into the trap. Like, why do we talk about the weather? Right. The reason we talk about the weather is because it's like the common denominator. We all experience the weather, and we have a point of view, right? If we're in different cities, then it's fascinating to me that Ryan's weather is different than my weather. And if we're in the same city, then it's like, how about this weather we're having, right? Like the weather is the common enemy. Now in the pandemic became the common enemy because now everyone has like a story to share. Everyone's working from home. And so like, that's the common enemy. So enemies are very powerful when it comes to binding people together and creating that affinity. So the thing that I say is kind of Jason's pointing out is that when you think about like, what does the person care about? What are their priorities? It rather than kind of talking about the product, talk about the enemy. Like, who is the enemy of your customer? And ideally, that's the enemy of your product or service as well, right? So if I'm talking to people, I might say like, hey, Ryan, I work with lots of amazing sales reps who realize that people love to buy stuff, but they just hate talking to salespeople. Am I right? Right? And Ryan's like, oh yeah, I hear that. Now we have a common enemy, right? Crappy salespeople. Right now we can continue the conversation. So I like this idea of, when you're reaching out to someone based on the role of that person and the product that you're pitching, or you want to talk about, and you might, if you work for a company, you might have many different products that you sell, is to really zero in on like, what is the enemy of that person? What is the enemy of your product? How do those two align? And use that as the basis for your discussion.
When you're structuring a cold call on this, Jason, so you're hearing some of this too. I know I've heard some really great frameworks that you've provided before about cold calling. How do you do it? How do you sneak in that, like, how do you do it without seeming like it's aimlessly just being personal? You know what I mean? Like aimlessly calling someone without a purpose or something. How do you get around that?
Yeah, I really think of cold calling as a game of odds. And like, if you look at the data from Gong, the odds of a successful cold call is 1.5%. I don't really like those odds. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
What I think about is, and with anything with outbound, is how can I increase my chances of having a positive conversation with this person? And almost all of the data that Gong has and any other conversational intelligence tool will show you is that the sooner you start talking about yourself, the less likely you are to secure a next step, whether that's a cold call or a discovery call, a demo call, whatever it might be. So the cold call, the way that I suggest structuring it so that you can go from a 1.5% chance of success to, I've seen as high as 33%. And that's, to me, top 1%er status. If you, 1 out of every 3 cold calls can get a qualified meeting from that and a good discovery call, that's top 1%er stuff. Most sales teams are hovering between 3 and 5% usually. So the way that you want to structure it is good old fashioned permission-based opener. Hey, Ryan, Jason with Blissful Prospecting. Look, I know I probably caught you in the middle of something, but you get 30 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling, and you can let me know if you want to keep chatting. That right there, 9 out of 10 times should get you to the next point of the call. So just Sandler style, whatever you want to call it, upfront contract, permission-based opener, really big fan of that. Tonality is really big when you do that, of course. And then here's where most reps make a mistake, is they do an elevator pitch at that point. Well, hey, David, I'm really glad you took the call. And at LeadIQ, what we can do is we can get your reps tons of leads quicker. They're not going to have to do all the manual tasks. And I really just wanted to set up a demo with you to show you a little bit more about the product. What's your calendar? It's like that's the mode that most people go into.
Yeah.
What I want to do is the exact opposite of that. I want to do what I call a priority drop. So a priority drop is people that I talk to, like you, tell me that they're working on stuff like this. And
Can you say that again, Jason, just so the kids can write that down? That's really good. Can you say it again?
I don't know. I might have forgot now.
People, you said people that I know like you are dealing with problems like this, right? Okay,
and
that's great.
Be a problem necessarily.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. So this is a company I worked with that sells an automated welding solution. So you could come in and say, you know what, David, if you're like a lot of the operations leaders I talk to, you're dealing with this labor shortage right now, and it's really hard to get workers. How's it going for you? That's not detailed enough, dude. Right? That's not going to be enough detail. So the way that it sounds is I'm going to drop in 2 or 3 priorities, and these are things very specifically that prospects bring up during the discovery process. So the talk track we worked on sounded something like this. Hey, John, typically when I talk to operations leaders, especially in manufacturing plants like the ones that you guys are running, I hear one of 2 things. One is that with the labor shortage around welders right now, it's making it really hard to hire people because the rate at which these people are leaving the workforce is much higher than the rate in which they're entering the workforce. So people are showing up, leaving after the first week, they're not sticking around, that sort of stuff. That's the first thing that I hear. The second thing that I hear is around automation and how these products with a really high customized, low volume product mix, you're only able to automate about half of the parts. And that other half, your team still has to do manually. It's just a lot of room for human error, and it ends up backing up your entire manufacturing process. Are either of those two things something that you're running across right now? And that language is super dialed in. It's super dialed in because every discovery call that I listen to, I just listen to recordings. These are the people, this is what they complain about. This is the thing they tell you that they're working on. And usually what the prospect will say is, well, yeah, duh, I'm working on both of those things. Or, we're having a heck of a time with that labor shortage. And then I'm going to ask questions around what they're doing. I'm going to ask open-ended questions around, well, hey, I noticed that you guys had, job postings and looks like you have about 6 positions open right now. I'm hearing that it's taken about 3 to 6 months to fill those positions. How long has it taken you guys to get people in right now? Or what are you doing to get people in faster? Or what are you doing to make sure that the people that you hire stick around? And then I can have a whole conversation for 3, 4, or 5 minutes after that around problems that they have. I'm not going to start with the problem. I'm going to start with what they want to accomplish and then the problem. And then I'm going to get the person to ask me what I do.
Can I just, I love what Jason's saying here. I have a very similar tactic. I refer to this as assumptive priming, which is I'm going to prime the conversation by giving you like a little bit of a pain menu, making assumptions based on your role, your company, and all that kind of stuff. I would add another little thing, which is, sometimes the fear is that I don't know which, so Jason brought out, 2 things that I hear from people like you. And if he's got that wrong, then now he's kind of blown his 2 shots, and the person's like, no, I don't care about those things. And maybe Jason would say, hey, look, then we shouldn't talk because this is the problem I can help solve, and if you don't have that problem, then let's go on. But one of the things you can do is you can inject even sometimes like a little teensy-weensy bit of discovery before you get into the assumptive priming. So I have a client, they're a cloud bookkeeping, a SaaS provider, and what they'll do is they'll say, hey, look, we know that our target customers, do one of 3 things. They use QuickBooks, they use spreadsheets, or they don't even know what bookkeeping is. It's always one of those, like 99% of the time. So I'm talking to Jason. I say, hey, Jason, look, thanks for taking my call. I do my upfront contract. Do you mind if I just ask, like, in terms of bookkeeping, like, what are you doing today? Are you doing like QuickBooks? Are you doing this? Are you doing spreadsheets or nothing? And then Jason says QuickBooks. I'm like, hey, no, this is great, and I appreciate that. And then I go into my assumptive prime, which is more focused based on the little bit of knowledge that I have. Now, certainly there's lots of research that you can do in advance with clients to kind of maybe, short list that thing. But I love this, what Jason's saying here in terms of the tactic, this priming tactic.
I'm going to need a neck brace for nodding so much and agreeing with you guys.
I could double click on what David said there too. It's presenting multiple choice options to reduce the amount of thinking that the person has to do, and you're filtering the conversation. Because if you just start with an elevator pitch and you don't know, to the example you used, David, if they use QuickBooks or spreadsheets, if you talk about how awesome your solution is and they're already using QuickBooks, you're going to get this objection a lot. Oh, we already have one of those. What do you do then when someone says that? You need to anticipate those objections and talk about them. And if you're getting, we already do this, or we're already taking care of this in-house early in the sales call, you're doing too much pitching and you're not asking enough questions. And a lot of people feel like there's not enough time to ask questions in a cold call, and there totally is. If you ask a really good question at the beginning, you're going to capture that person's attention, and the goal is to get them talking as quickly as possible.
So Maza, I think you have a question from the audience, and then we're going to have to wrap up. Do you want to ask it?
Yeah, so this is from Michael Pittman, a new SDR. What types of personalization have you seen work best? Good news and annual reports, recent promotion, using their own words, like if they an article or blog post or something like that.
Yeah, I like even just simple things like go into their LinkedIn profile, look at something that they've shared recently, right? Say, oh yeah, I saw you were on Jason's podcast. I'm a big fan of Jason as well. Like just something to show that you just did a little bit of research. And I think LinkedIn is a good place to start. You can also, like based on their role, start saying, okay, here's a really interesting article that I found for people in your role, and kind of share that. I'm actually, not a fan of sharing too many things from your own website, your company's website, because it feels a bit self-serving. But I think just a really simple place to start, just go to LinkedIn, see something they've shared, liked, try to kind of draw that commonality before you reach out.
What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, if I had to grade it, the stuff that's personal to them is going to be like A type of stuff. If you're running into a situation, because a lot of industries don't have people with really good LinkedIn profiles and stuff, don't be afraid to look at their recommendations on LinkedIn. That's a really good one. And then with the company, a little trick that I recommend is if you have the URL of the company, leadiq.com, if you put a colon after that, and then you can type in different kind of keywords and search in Google with inside of a company's website. So if you have keywords that you're looking for, like digital, customer experience, acquisition, merger, whatever it might be, you can find some good stuff on the company too. But yeah, personal, then company, I would rank them in that order. You're going to have the most success with personal stuff if you can find it.
So everyone, we are unfortunately at time, but I feel like we got so many nuggets of information here that I'm not going to need to eat dinner tonight. It was delicious. Do you guys want to plug anything? You want to start, David, and plug anything?
No, like I've been accused of giving away too much stuff for free. So if you want lots of free stuff, just go over to cerebralselling.com. I also have a YouTube channel by the same name where I give away tons of free stuff. And if you're interested, my book is called Sell the Way You Buy, and you can get it on Amazon, Audible, wherever you buy books.
Go add David on LinkedIn too. A great follow. Jason, what about you? What do you got cooking for Blissful for the end of the year? Anything good?
Yeah, definitely recommend checking out David's book. It's probably the book I recommend most these days. Throw me some commissions, David. No. So I would recommend, I got a ton of free stuff too, blissfulprospecting.com. So podcasts, daily posts on LinkedIn. If you're a rep and you're looking for more coaching and want like help implementing some of the stuff we talked about, we got a really cool program, Outbound Squad. You can check out, it's application only. You could get help from myself. And then we also work with companies too. So if you're a company and you're thinking, how do I get my team to prospect more like what we talked about today? We can help you with that too. So blissfulprospecting.com is going to be the best place.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for being on. On our end, we're going to send you a recording. If you'd like to try out LeadIQ, all you have to do is reply back to the email that we send for the recording, and we can set you up with a free trial. You can mess around with it for the end of the year, see if it helps boost up some pipeline for you. And you can have some fun with it. I learned a lot. Thank you guys very much for being on. We'll talk to you later. We'll see you.
Hey, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure.